All you guys know the gentleman here on the end, I am sure, our Mayor, Ashton Hayward. And so we're very pleased to have Mayor Hayward here with us this afternoon. And he is going to introduce our speaker. So if you will, a nice round of applause for the Honorable Ashton Hayward.
Well, good afternoon, Jeff. You're the consummate host. I always like to tease Jeff Weeks about being the Charlie Rose of Florida, right, Jeff? Well, Safe Harbor, thank you. University of West Florida, thank you for sponsoring Tiger Bay. And it's a real honor for me to introduce Phil Levine, the mayor of Miami Beach. Phil was elected in 2014. And I think one of the unique things about mayors, what I've learned in the last 7 years, is we have a bond because like congressmen, like legislators, we can't hide. So when I walk in here today, I see Admiral Ramsey. He's going to tell me what he thinks. He's going to tell me his opinions. And as I say, when I walk out of the front door in the morning to go walk my dog, and I might see Pat Wyndham walking and exercising, you know, we all have ideas and opinions, and mayors can't hide. We can't hide. So a lot of our other elected officials have that luxury, but we work for the people. We don't have the luxury of playing partisan politics. We represent the people. And, you know, whether it's potholes, whether it's finance, whether it's monuments, no matter what it is, we're going to have to talk to the people, and we can't hide. And so having known Phil for the last few years, we have some mutual friends down in Miami, and to see the change that he did on Miami Beach and focusing on what the community wants and what the community needs. Because you might have that school teacher going home from school one night and thinking about the children that she was teaching and the mothers that are trying to get kids to and from school. Those are the real things that people think about every single day. Paying the bills, getting their kids educated, getting those roads paved, getting those parks taken care of, getting those recreation centers taken care of. Those are the things that people really do care about. We are, of course, passionate about our ideas and our opinions, whether that's national, state, or local. But when you have a great community, you can change the lives of many people, and you can give the young people hope. The people in our young community that go to University of West Florida and Pensacola State College, I see Dr. Meadows out there, that want to stay in their community. That's incredibly important, and that's what we've tried to do here in Pensacola, and I know that's what Phil Levine's done in Miami Beach. He's a businessman. He understands business. He understands people. He was just up here recently with his family. His fiance wanted to see the upside of Florida and Northwest Florida. So when you think about our great state, the third largest state in the union, we have to compete. We can't just depend on tourism. We have to compete for jobs, education, and making it the best place to work, live, work, and play. And that's what we've done in Pensacola. I know that's what my friend in Miami Beach has done. He's going to continue to do, but I think we have a great speaker. I got a note a second ago before I came in here from Senator Latvala. I know he was just here speaking to the Tiger Bay Club. And he said, Ashton, just thanks for doing what you're doing on the local level, because he understands over in the legislature, on the local level, we get it done. So again, it's my honor to introduce Phil Levine from Miami Beach.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And he's a fantastic mayor, I can tell you that. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it. You're great. I thank you so much. You know him as the mayor in Pensacola, obviously, but I can just tell you, as a mayor down in the southern part of our state, he's very well known all across the state of Florida, and known for a lot of the great things he's done here in Pensacola. And whether it's the downtown, which has become so exciting here. I was driving around today, and about 6 weeks ago, we stayed over in Margaritaville, and absolutely fantastic. And I love your stormwater park, the Admiral Stormwater Park, which is very unique and different because, you know, down in Miami Beach, we know a little bit about stormwater and flooding these days, as you can imagine. We seem to be in the crosshairs. So I thank you. You know, it's interesting, you know, as the mayor speaks, probably some of you are thinking, okay, he's the Republican mayor of Pensacola. And this guy, Philip Levine, who you've never met before, he's like that Democratic mayor from Miami Beach. Well, what in the world do these two guys have in common? But let me tell you what we have in common. The most important thing we have in common, before any party affiliation, is that we're both Americans. And we believe what's doing right for America is more important than what's doing right for any particular party, okay? And I can tell you the second thing we have in common, of course, is the fact that we're both mayors, and we've learned early on that it's all about getting it done. You know, my motto when I came into office, I think Nike was just do it. My motto was just get it done. And a lot of people call me the most impatient mayor they've ever seen, and I wear that label very proudly because I am very impatient. We like to get things done. And it's not about being right. It's not about being left. It's about being forward. It's about moving forward and getting things done. And I know Mayor Hayward has done that here. Jeff, thank you so much for the opportunity. Tiger Bay, I'm honored to be here up in Pensacola. I know the president, Ted Howard, is not here today. I'd like to just mention him. And really and truly, Councilman Larry Johnson, great to see you. And again, I know you have a congressional candidate here, former Navy pilot, Phil Ayer. He's here somewhere. Phil, nice to meet you. Thank you so much. A pleasure. And I also believe that you have a candidate for governor, Bob White. Is Bob here? Bob, nice to meet you. Wish you the best of luck on the road. And everybody else here. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to speak here. By the way, I didn't eat because your mayor took me to this place that was so fantastic called the Broken Egg this morning. And I mean, the omelet was so massive. I said, I just told my fiance, we're not having anything until I get home for dinner tonight in Miami, okay? Because I'm absolutely full and it was great. As a matter of fact, I bought a couple of those mugs because the big argument we have a lot of times in the morning about coffee is she bought these small mugs that are so small, and I'm like, you need a big mug for your coffee. I can't have these little mugs, okay? So when I was at the Broken Egg, they had these huge mugs. I bought 2, and I can't wait to bring them back to Miami Beach. So let me tell you, I want to tell you a little about myself and a little about Miami Beach and a little about maybe a vision I think would be great for Florida. First of all, I was born in Boston. I moved down to South Florida. I was about 10 years old. I decided to take my parents with me. They came with me. And went to public school my entire life. And then, of course, I went to college. I went to the great U of M and University of Michigan, not Hurricanes, okay? And went to University of Michigan. I majored in political science, and I always thought, somehow, some way, how am I ever going to use that political science degree? Because whenever you major in political science, everyone said, what are you going to do with that degree? I said, I don't know, but I want to major in political science. Thank God, finally in my life, I was able to use it for something. And my journey was a little different. I came back down to Miami, didn't have a family business to go into. Just knew I wanted to be successful, whatever that may be, get a job, do something good that I liked and I loved. Tried many different things. Didn't find that I was loving it, didn't enjoy it. And of course, I used to have these visions of, Glandra, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And of course, my mom, my sister are like, oh my God, he just needs to get a job, when I was a young guy. And I answered an ad in the Miami Herald. Those are the days when you would look for a job. Remember, you would look in the newspaper. And I saw a job that a cruise line was looking to have a lecturer come on board and talk about all the various ports of call and all about opportunities in the ports. And it was a company called Royal Caribbean. They only had a few ships at the time. And I interviewed, went down there and thought, oh my God, this will be so much fun. I want to go work on a cruise ship. I'm going to give lectures. It's going to be great. And I'll never forget, I did the interview and the head of human resources said to me, what kind of public speaking experience do you have? And I said, oh, I'm a great public speaker. Oh, I'm fantastic. I've done it. Meanwhile, I had never done public speaking in my entire life. But all I knew is I wanted that job. I wanted to get on board that Royal Caribbean cruise ship. So lo and behold, they didn't do a lot of due diligence, thank God. And they hired me. And I went to go work on a Royal Caribbean ship called the Song of America. I don't know if any of you have gone cruising before or enjoy cruising. And next thing I know, I'm on board that ship wearing a uniform. And you can imagine all my friends who graduated from these great schools are like, this one's working for that bank, and this one's working for that wonderful real estate company. And Philip is Julie from Love Boat, okay? Working on board a cruise ship. I mean, it was like this thing, but I just thought, you know what? I just want to do it. It'll be fun. I'll love it. And if I'm good at it, I'll be successful. But I don't know. And I wasn't focused on money. I just wanted to really enjoy. And I was telling Phil, we're talking about the Navy. I was saying that I kind of joined I call it the Velvet Navy after I graduated. That was the cruise ship industry. So real quick. So next thing you know, I'm on board this cruise ship thinking this is great. They give me a cabin, of course, below the water line. There's no porthole. And I'm thinking, wow, this is different than what I expected it to be. And I knew I had to give a lecture that day, the following day out at sea. And I had written all my notes, and I was going to talk about St. Thomas and San Juan, and I had never really been to these places. I went once just for a minute. And I got to tell you something, I was never so scared in my life. I mean, the night before, I'm in my cabin, and I'm thinking, how do I get off this cruise ship? And I remember thinking, I have I think in my bank account I had $500. And I thought, I don't know, does the Coast Guard offer some kind of service where they pick you up and take you off? And I don't even know what they charge, but I just think, I'm so scared. And I remember I woke up the next morning and it was thinking, I got to get to this lounge called the Oklahoma Lounge. And I'm dressed and I'm walking there with my notes. And I thought, oh, there'll be 10, 15, 20 people there. I'll tell them about the ports of call and I'll get out and I'll be done. I'll get through this. I walk in. Literally, it's standing room only. There's 1,500 cruise passengers. They're hanging from the rafters. And the cruise director, British, suave, literally like out of the textbook. When you look at cruise directors, he was like James Bond, He's an experienced, and he goes, ladies and gentlemen, we have the greatest, most expert, knowledgeable lecturer in the history of the cruise industry with us today. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm frozen. And he says, welcome, Philip Levine, blah, blah, blah. So I walk up on the stage, and of course, my arms are literally frozen to my side. They don't move. And I start to talk about these ports of call, and little by little, they started to listen to me. And I thought, well, at least I had been there once. They haven't even gone before. And of course, I crack a joke. I start to laugh. My arm moves from my side a little bit. It's no longer frozen. And for me, that was the beginning of entering the most exciting industry in the world. And I eventually came off the cruise ships, and I started a little business in Miami Beach where I started hiring guys and girls and teaching them how to give these lectures. And next thing you know, we started publishing in-cabin magazines like you have in-flight magazines. And then we got into this business and that business. And lo and behold, from that little help wanted ad in the Miami Herald, we became the largest partner of the cruise industry in the world, and eventually sold the company to a large French group called Louis Vuitton, and you all have heard of that. And my mom actually worked in my company, and first thing she said to me is, when we were selling to Louis Vuitton, she said, are we going to get free Louis Vuitton pocketbooks? Is that purses? Is that we're getting a discount? What's going to happen next? So that was my journey in business. And during that period of time, I was able and fortunate enough to get involved with local politics. And I met at the time President Clinton, and struck up a friendship with President Clinton. And I always laugh is when I sold all my companies and I was no longer president, it was around the same time he wasn't president. So I always say we were two ex-presidents. And I was fortunate enough to be able to travel with him quite a bit and see some of the good works he's done around the world. And I became very inspired and thought, someday, somehow, when I go into public service, I always felt it in my mind, I want to run for office. And the opportunity for me truly came right in my own city of Miami Beach. And it was a city that was kind of, I always say, analysis paralysis. You have all these folks in office that A, have never done anything in their life, and B, can't get anything done. And I said, I'm going to run for office. I'm going to run for mayor. And let me tell you, it's like every city. It's big city politics. My God, they said there's no way this kid is going to win. He's a successful businessman. The city's 50% Hispanic. There's no shot. This candidate over here who's Cuban American, he's got name ID, he's a commissioner, he's going to become the mayor. And I said, okay, I'm going to run. And little did they know, puedo hablar español fluentemente. I speak Spanish relatively fluently. And my family always says, maybe it was worth it he went to school in Spain that summer. And I spoke. And what I did is something very different. I said, I'm going to go knock on doors. So I knocked on 6,000 doors across Miami Beach and qualified by petition. And I literally, the funny thing is that we have a lot of condominiums in Miami Beach, as you know, a lot of those tall buildings. I think I broke into every single building. And I said, worst comes to worst. If I don't make it in anything else after this, I will be the best cat burglar in the history of Miami Beach. Because I know how to evade all this security. I can get in there, I can knock on doors. And basically, I said, I'm going to go talk to the customers. And I listened and I talked to all the customers in Miami Beach. And I always laugh and say some people, because of our big flooding issue that we have, as you know, like New Orleans is happening, the sea level is rising. And I said that one of my big campaign promises is we're going to move forward. Nothing is 100% effective, but doing nothing is 100% ineffective. So I'm going to come up with solutions. And lo and behold, of course, the media, which, sometimes you can't rely on them, right? They said it's going to be a close race. There was 4 people in the race, and I won in a landslide with no runoff. So I always said some people get swept into office. I kind of got floated into office in Miami Beach because of all the flooding issues that were going on. And it was very, very exciting time. And I one of the things that I did right away when we got in, as I said, and I use a lot of sometimes World War II terms and phrases, and I said it's a little bit how the greatest generation handled World War II. Miami Beach got attacked. It was Pearl Harbor. We have a choice. We can assemble and we can do something and we can move forward like our country did, where we can sit around and we can hire consultants that'll hire consultants that'll hire consultants. I'm not doing that. I want to get things done. So we assembled all the engineers in one conference room, and they were like the generals. And we had some that we thought were Montgomery, and some that we thought were Patton, and some that we thought were, and we just said, let's get it done. Let's move forward. Let's figure it out. And we started raising roads. We started putting in pumps. We started changing building codes. And lo and behold, in certain areas that were low-lying, when the king tides came about, our city was dry. Now, we're not perfect. Matter of fact, we got hit 2 weeks ago with an unexpected, severe, massive rain event that power went off and parts of our streets got flooded. They drained relatively quickly, but like I said, listen, there's no 100%, but we've got to move forward and we got to get things done. And that's what we did. So the big issue in Miami Beach was sea level rise. It still is. It's going to be for a long time for some of these coastal towns. I know you have a little flooding here once in a while. We had a police force in Miami Beach that needed a real culture change. When I ran for office, I said, if I win the election, we're going to audit the police department. We're going to make some changes. Now, one thing I've learned with that is you definitely don't get the police endorsement when you say that. And, and I didn't. But we audited. We actually went out. We recruited the most amazing new police chief, former head of NYPD intelligence, and the chief out in Aurora, Colorado during that horrible Batman shooting, Dan Oates. And we changed our entire command staff, and we moved forward. We made things a lot different. We're building a new convention center. And more importantly, we just kind of like created a sense of customer service, that the government works for the people, that we're there, that we want to be there for you, whatever it may be. And that's what we did. That was the most important thing. We literally hosted the United States Conference of Mayors recently. We celebrated 100 years in Miami Beach with some great concerts. It's kind of a funny story. We turning 100 years old, 6 months before, I said, I want to throw the biggest concert in Florida history. And I'll never forget, we're in the conference room with all our chief and our head of building and our head of code and our head of this and our city manager. And I said, listen, we're going to throw this concert. It's going to be huge on the beach. And I said, now the bad news is we're going to break all the rules. The good news is we don't have to do it again for another 100 years, okay? But we're going to do it. And we ended up having some of the greatest artists performing for free to celebrate Miami Beach 100-year anniversary. But let's talk about Florida. People keep speculating, am I going to run for governor? It's something I'm thinking about. I've not made a decision. I plan to make somewhat of a decision in October. But the one thing I'm definitely sure about is that we need a vision for Florida. I think there was an article, I don't think I know, in the Tampa Bay Times this morning. And the reporter, who's a great reporter, his name is Adam Smith, he described me as being enigmatic. It was like a very interesting term. But the cover of the article, and I want to read it to you, just the actual headline, because I thought it was kind of an interesting headline. As soon as I can pull it up with he said, Democrat Philip Levine won't attack Trump. Can he be Florida governor? And it was kind of like, how could that person be a Democrat? How can that person actually be out there? And I tried to explain it. I said, I am pro-business and I'm pro-people. I said, being a partisan person, that all you want to do is attack the other side, that you want winners and you want losers, that's not who I am. I want everybody to win as Americans. And yes, do I believe, thank you, do I believe that, obviously I'm not a fan of the president right now. I'm disappointed in his policies. I'm disappointed in what's happened in the last week. But the one thing I do say is that right now, he's the pilot of our plane, and we're passengers. And the one thing I don't want to do is wish failure to the pilot when I'm on the plane, okay? I want the pilot to be successful. And being successful is good for everybody. And of course, that's kind of hard for someone to say when you think, my God, that person's a Democrat. But the fact of the matter is, as I said before, I'm an American. And during the election last year, I always laugh and say I was the only Democrat that put a Kevlar vest on, was on Fox News all the time. And let me tell you, I took a lot of bullets doing it. But our state is a purple state, and our state represents what America's about. It's red and it's blue, and that's how you make purple. And that's how you move forward, and that's how you get things done. I just finished a great tour with Sirius XM Radio called A Day in the Sun. We toured all around the state of Florida, and we saw the most amazing people. A gentleman by the name of Wildman Dusty, Krem, who literally captures pythons in the Everglades with his bare hands and his bare feet. And We saw an amazing cigar factory in Tampa where they're still hand rolling cigars, to learning about the sponge industry in Tarpon Springs. And literally it's dramatic, tremendous contribution to World War II as a material that was used. And we went out and we checked out the Harley Davidson store in Daytona and learned all about Bike Week. We have a great state. Our state represents, I think, the best of what America is about. But my message is that it's all about business. It's all about taking care of people. And what does that mean? When you look at the greatest companies in our country today, whether it's Amazon, Lockheed, whether it's Boeing, whether it's Apple, whether it's GE, whatever it may be, and you look at their HR manuals, what you're going to find is that they're pro-people and they're pro-business. And that combination is what leads to great opportunities, great profits, and allowing everyone to rise. And for me, when I think about, what is the message? What is something that's most important for us in Florida? Is bringing these companies to Florida, allowing them to open up in Florida, creating the culture and the ecosystem in Florida that makes sense for these companies to come here. Like attracts like. Boston just got the world headquarters of General Electric. And people say, well, what did they do? How did they get the world headquarters of General Electric? Well, I can tell you they didn't get it by just offering the greatest incentive. They got it by creating the most amazing ecosystem in Boston, where they have the highest rate of college grads, where they have incredible public transportation. That's the reason why GE moved their world headquarters to Boston. So, it's an interesting concept, but I think it's so important. We look at NASA right now, and we look at Silicon Valley. NASA, to me, is our Silicon Valley. That, to me, is a great opportunity for us in the future. I mean, look what's going on here in Pensacola with the aerospace industry. This is a fantastic industry. It needs to be grown, exploited, and blown up and make it bigger and greater than ever before. But it's so important for us to realize that in order for us to get the companies to come here, it's all about creating the culture. Infrastructure is crucial. When you build a bridge, you build a new train, whatever it may be, it's not Republican and it's not Democrat. And the jobs that it creates are not Republican and not Democrat. No one's ever gone over a bridge and said, I don't like that bridge, that's a Democratic bridge. Well, that's a Republican train. No one ever says that. But the jobs it creates and the ecosystem that it creates in Florida to connect all our cities will be important, and it's crucial. And I think it's important for all of us to think about that. We all agree the environment is very important. One of the things I champion, some people agree, some people don't, is a minimum living wage where people can actually live. And I always laugh and I said, I'm an entrepreneur, I build companies. The minimum living wage is not a Democratic issue. It's a Republican issue. And all my Republican friends will go, why is that? I said, well, let me explain. One thing we know is you can't live on $8.10 an hour. It's just impossible. I don't know who can. You can't, not in our country. So if you can't live on 8-10 cents an hour, who's paying for it? Well, the government's paying for it with social service, welfare services. The taxpayers are paying for it. We're paying for that. So, people say, well, what about that person that owns that McDonald's? How can they afford it? Well, let me explain to you, and we all know this. That person doesn't own one McDonald's. That McDonald's is owned by a private equity group out of Chicago, and they have 180 McDonald's. And they love having that McDonald's in Florida where they only have to pay $8.10 an hour because all of us are subsidizing their business. So I don't look at it like it's a Democratic issue. I look at it like it's our issue. The fact is, how do we make sure that we're not subsidizing all these companies that are paying such low wages in certain areas? A big issue in Florida is local control. I as a mayor, you can imagine, I believe in local control. Government serves its people best when it's closest to them. I know another government that loves central control. It was called the Soviet style of governing, okay? And they had central control out of Moscow. And it really didn't work out too well for them. So I believe that one of the things we need to do is bring the government back to the people, bring the government back on a local level, the same way Warren Buffett runs all his companies, all 50, 60 of those businesses. He allows the local leadership of those companies, the local CEOs, to run those companies to give the best value to the shareholders and the maximum value to the customers. And I think it's just human psychology to allow things to happen on a local level. I think it's very important. We're all on Team Florida, everybody. And, as a Democrat and as an American, I always say that, and it's not that popular sometimes for both parties, I always believe that the worst background for government is government. And I came from the private sector, and we need more people to come from the private sector to give back to the country. In the private sector, we don't kind of tell you what we're going to do in the future. We kind of show you what we've done in the past. It's a different program. And I think that's an important thing for all of us to understand. We're a future state. We really need to be the future state. And I think that over the next year or so, it's going to be a very exciting time for all of us. So it's great to meet you, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you today. Thank you.
I'll let you stand here 'cause
Sure,
we're gonna have some questions and
absolutely.
answers. Q&A. Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to ask you this a little bit later when we tape a little television get together, so I'm just kind of curious. I'll get you to respond to the live audience about this. I read where you sort of identify yourself as a radical centrist. Tell me more.
Sure. Thank you for bringing that up. You know, it's so funny. Whenever you want to speak, I like to talk for an hour and a half, but I don't think that's going to be too feasible unless we're going to go for dinner. But I coined that term because that really is who I am. I believe that what made our country what it is because of the art of compromise, the center. You know, it's almost like, you know, we're not right, we're not left, we're the center. To move things forward, you need to be in the middle. We can't have winners and losers anymore in our country. We need to have only winners. It can't be that one side wins and the other side loses. It can't be about calling out other people's policies just because of the party that they're in. It's not the future of our country. We won't last, we won't continue, we won't be prosperous. The greatest generation, World War II, the way our country fought, it wasn't like all of a sudden when we were going to be landing in Normandy, all of a sudden we were like, well, that's a Republican idea. No, that was a Democratic idea. We shouldn't land in Normandy. We could land in Normandy. No, we did what was right for our country. And that's what we need to get back to. So I call myself a radical centrist because I think I'm unusually normal, uniquely rational, okay? And I believe that that's really kind of where America needs to be, and I think that's where Florida needs to be, our country.
All right, we're going to get into the questions from the audience here. Please explain your stance on sanctuary cities, if you support them, why, and if you oppose them, why.
Sure, thank you.
Oh, excuse me.
The funny thing about sanctuary cities, we can't ever find what the true definition is. As the mayor of Miami Beach, we don't have prisons. We have a county that has the prisons. So we don't necessarily deal with prisons specifically. But this is how I feel. If you are in our country and you're not legally in our country, and if you commit a crime and you're caught, guess what? You're going home, okay? And that's how it's supposed to be. I mean, the fact of the matter is that our laws of our country are paramount, and that's what we were based on. We're a country of rules and laws. Now, with that said, should we be a tolerant country? Yes. Should we be tolerant cities? Yes. Do we want to give people the opportunity to live the American dream? Absolutely. That's the formula that's made us successful. Think about this. Coca-Cola has the syrup. It works for them. Every company has a formula. Our formula is the American dream. People come from all over the world. They come to America to live their dream. We don't want to mess with the American dream. If we mess with our formula, we're going to be like Coca-Cola when they did New Coke. Remember that? It didn't work out too well. Let's not do New American Dream. The American dream works. So as far as the definition of a sanctuary, I'm not sure what it specifically is. No one can quite identify it. But I do believe that our law enforcement should enforce the laws of our country, but simultaneously we need to be tolerant and we need a proper and effective immigration policy that works. So.
Question from the audience. Do you believe that all Americans have a right to health insurance? If so, can you cite constitutional support for your belief?
Thanks. Well, the one thing I can tell you is I'm not a lawyer, okay? I was accepted to one law school, University of Miami, and I rejected them, and I decided to go into business. And a lot of my brother-in-law is a lawyer, so you know when people bring me legal questions and constitutional, I'm like, I'm not a constitutional scholar, but I can answer the question as this: what would GE do? What would Boeing do? What would Amazon, Apple, what would Lockheed do? Do they think that their people should have health insurance? Yes, they do. They believe that their people should have health insurance. So if you want to model yourself after the greatest, most admired organizations in the world today, which by the way, aren't governments, why not mirror their style? Why not mimic them? Why not take a cue from how they treat their people? If you're on Team Florida, we want to make sure that you have health insurance. We're in a competitive state. We want to make sure that we strive and go further than any other state. We want to take care of our people. So the answer is yes, I believe everyone should have health insurance, but I don't think it's necessarily the government completely pays for everyone's health. Well, why? Why should the government pay for everyone's health insurance? If you can't afford health insurance and you're at the lowest level, yes, absolutely, we should make sure. Because you know why? The next time you go to an emergency room, you don't want to have a line out the door, and that's America's health insurance. People go into emergency rooms. You want to make sure that those that can't fend for themselves, we provide health insurance. But otherwise, I believe there's a hybrid system that, listen, President Obama will be the first person to say to you that the Affordable Health Care Act needs to be fixed. Everyone knows it needs to be fixed. It's not perfect. Let's fix it. Let's make it work. Let's make sure we treat our people the right way. I don't think it should be a simple government solution. The government pays for it. Why? You know, one of the things I said, it's crazy. People look at me like Democrats, like, what's wrong with you? I said, you love having that 7 Series BMW, right? Well, maybe if you paid for your health insurance, you can only get a 5 Series BMW. And I'm so sorry, okay? Okay? But why is BMW more entitled to some of your money than the doctor or the hospital? Can't figure that part out. I mean, they went to med school, they studied, they did things. So in other words, there's a compromise here. Let's figure out a system that with the private sector and the public sector and make it work so everyone has health insurance. But I don't think it should be free for everybody, not by any means.
Sorry, Jeff.
What would be the first thing you would do if you were elected governor?
The first thing I would do if I ran for governor and I was elected governor would be really and truly to go out and more to talk to the customers, to take the government in Tallahassee and bring it to the people and figure out a way of how do we get that government in Tallahassee and bring it to Central Florida and to Southern Florida and to make sure that we have full interaction with the people. And I also believe what I'd like to do if I were to run and were elected is to go out there and talk to all these incredible companies that I know should have operations in Florida and figure out a way to let them know about the culture change that's going on of the ecosystem in Florida to get them to open up operations in Florida. And listen, I gotta say one thing, you know, Governor Scott and I haven't agreed on certain things, but we do agree on other things. And he's an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur. When they start going after like Enterprise Florida, I was like, why would you want to play politics with something like this? Maybe it's not run well, maybe it is, maybe it needs to change, who knows? But the concept of Enterprise Florida is good because who doesn't want enterprise in Florida? You do. It's like going after Visit Florida. Like maybe it needs to be fixed, maybe it needs to be changed. But the concept of Visit Florida is good. You want people to visit Florida. These are core competencies for ourselves. So I think that we need to open up the door to change the ecosystem of Florida so that we begin to attract these great companies to create jobs that are higher than minimum living wage jobs.
All right, piggyback on that question. What about job losses when the minimum wage goes up? McDonald's is studying a lot of kitchen counter automation.
Well, I could tell you this. All the studies have shown that that doesn't happen. Now, listen, I get it. You know, if you're only paying your people $8.10 an hour and you're making this much money and you're a private equity firm out of Boston and you got 200 of these sub shops and you don't like the fact that Florida citizens and residents aren't going to pay your bill anymore. I understand. I understand that you're going to come up with all kinds of studies and reasons, but they've done it in Seattle. And Seattle's a pretty advanced economy in the state of Washington. And they have found that there's been no job loss. Matter of fact, it's been the contrary. There's been job growth. So I don't buy the argument. I believe that when you pay people more, they'll work longer, they'll work harder, and you'll retain them without having to change them and reshuffle them. You'll keep people longer. And if you believe that someone could live on $8.10 an hour, then first of all, I'd love to know how you believe it and how you can do it. But I also think that it's not the truth, and it's something that I believe that will do nothing but increase and better our economy.
Sure.
Switching gears here a little bit, how would you address the problems in education, i.e. teacher salaries, testing, etc.?
Okay, so the education, it's all part of the system. So Team Florida, we know we want to have better education. Education comes down to priorities. If you decide that you want to focus on education and you want to make sure that if kids can go to college whose parents don't make enough money and they don't want to come off with a huge debt burden, that's a policy decision. I believe what we should do is if your family doesn't make enough money and you want to go to our university and you want to study, that we should figure out a way to send you to that college, commit you to work in our state for 5 to 7 years afterwards, but don't have you leaving with a huge debt burden. And there's a way to do it. But more importantly, it's just a priority. It's a policy decision. Do you want to dedicate the funds in that direction? Is education important? I think it's very important. I think we need to do it. I think we need the best schools in the entire country. And it comes down to just focusing resources. You know, the whole charter school issue is a great one. And people are like, are you pro-charter school? Are you this? Listen, I went to public school my whole life. I did pretty good for myself, okay? And I believe that if you focus the resources on the public schools, you'll do great. As far as charter schools, I think they're fantastic. I don't want to invest my taxpayer money in them. I mean, but I think they're great. I mean, all the luck to them. They should open up charter schools everywhere. But I don't believe the state of Florida should be investing in charter schools. To me, that's like saying, are you not happy with the post office? Okay. Well, do you want to start investing in FedEx? Do you want your taxpayers' money in FedEx? I don't think so. Do you want to start investing in private security companies and take money away from the police department? Why? Let them compete. It's fantastic. It's a great concept. I just don't believe that we should use state funding for that. I believe that is a public sector area, and I think that we should focus and put funds on it.
Does business mean chronic development, or is there room for conservation-oriented ecotourism in your vision of Florida?
Thank you. Listen, the environment's so important. We know, we've seen it down in South Florida. We know how important the Everglades are. We realize it's a major tourist draw. We know how it provides fresh water for so much of our state. We saw what happened when we had those algae plumes going out to the east and west of our state, what it did to our brand and reputation. I believe that ecotourism is crucial. I come from the tourism background. White, clean beaches are very important. I don't believe we should have offshore drilling. I think that we should be focusing on, listen, we call us the Sunshine State. So, you know, it's solar power opportunities are huge. China right now is out there owning this industry. And we're sitting here in what's called the Sunshine State, and we're not doing enough. And by the way, they don't call it the partly cloudy state, okay? They call it the Sunshine State. So why aren't we like utilizing what we've got? And that's part of, to me, great economic development. But no one wants to come to Florida if it's not environmentally sound, if it's not clean. It's for tourism, but it's not just for tourism. If we want those companies, we want those millennials, we want them to stay here and not go up north for different jobs, you've got to create the ecosystem. And that includes the environment, education, infrastructure, and bringing those great companies to Florida.
Please speak to the financial situation of Miami Beach. How has it been able to afford all the infrastructure changes and, I'm not sure what they mean, free contracts?
Sure. Well, I can tell you this. We didn't have a choice. So your streets are flooding during sunny days. Can you imagine? Out of nowhere, it's a beautiful sunny day. Water's coming up. People's cars are being ruined. What happens? Investor confidence gets shattered. People, they're scared for their future, tourism. And we made a decision that we were going to bond and pay for the streets to be lifted, for pumps to be put in, for seawalls to be changed. And we didn't have a choice. We had to pay for it ourselves. The state wasn't going to help us. The federal government wasn't going to help us. And we have about $40 billion worth of real estate to protect. So what we did is we had to go and, you know, the stormwater fee, we raised it a little bit for people, and we took that incremental revenue and we bonded it out, and we raised $100 million. We've only spent 15% of our total commitment, which is $500 million at this time. But that's what we did. Now, we're very fortunate. We happen to have a very wealthy, successful, energetic a city that's prosperous economically. A lot of coastal cities aren't like that. So the question comes is, if your city isn't Miami Beach, how do you afford to make yourself resilient like we did? And I think it comes with the state helping you and with the federal government as well.
Okay, our final question here, and I can't read all of this, but it looks to me something along the lines, how do you justify your belief in federal programs related to education and healthcare?
Well, I think I said it before. I'm not sure if it's federal, it's state. It comes down to this. if you want to be pro-business, you have to be pro-people. And once again, like I said, people say, a reporter asked the other day, he goes, you're pro-business and you're pro-people. Is that really a progressive thing? And I said, well, I guess every company in America must be progressive, because if you read their HR manuals, they're the same. They want to provide health care. They want to make sure that if you can't afford it and your kids need, pre-K, they're going to help you do it. If you want to go to school and you're working for, if you're working for any of these great companies, they're going to help you get to school. So I believe it's good for business. It's good for our state to make sure that we take care of our people, whether it's health care or whatever it may be, or raising the minimum living wage. I think that's the future, and Florida really is the future state.
Mayor Hayward, thank you for coming out. Councilman Johnson, thank you. Thank you all. Mayor Levine,
Thank you.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much.